Welcome to Entrepreneurs, Executives, and Eccentrics, a podcast dedicated to the stories, strategies, and secrets of remarkable individuals. Join us as we engage in enlightening conversations with intriguing entrepreneurs, accomplished executives, and fascinating eccentrics, exploring their journeys, triumphs, and unconventional wisdom that has shaped their success. Get ready to meet Victoria Mendez, CEO of Downtown Financial Group. A former JPMorgan executive, she now helps entrepreneurs build generational wealth through real estate, specializing in creative financing and tax-saving strategies to achieve financial independence.
I know I have the liquidity, but it is harder for me to access. So when I log into my bank account in my operating account and I see $10,000 and I know my monthly overhead is $10,000, you better believe that hunger comes back really quickly.
Hello, Victoria. Welcome. Would you please tell me who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Scott, for having me. My name is Victoria Mendez. I'm the CEO of Downtown Financial Group. I'm a mom. I am a wife. I'm a multifaceted entrepreneur who prides in helping other entrepreneurs build generational wealth through all their hard work and leveraging it through real estate.
So we had talked earlier, and your thesis, as I understand it, goes something like this: make your money at your job, make your money at your company, make the money at your, whatever it is that you do, but store that wealth in real estate. Can you kind of go into that a little bit? And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. So a lot of the beginning story. So I left corporate America because I got tired of making my six figures, $100,000 and working, 40, 50 hours a week on salary, not getting paid any overtime, to let me explore this entrepreneurship world. I figured that there had to be more out there. And for me, it was really about what did that more look like? And I looked at all the lines of business. I worked for JPMorgan as in the banking sector. I looked at all the lines of business. And for me, it was mortgages. Why? Because I saw all the DIY shows, all the HGTVs. And I kept remembering as a renter, man, I would love to do this stuff, but my security deposit. And so I realized I couldn't do it. So when I went through the world of entrepreneurship, as I started just as a loan officer because I was passionate about helping others get into real estate so they could have the same feeling I did when I bought my first condo. And for me, when I started building out the company, I learned very quickly that one, you work harder and more hours as an entrepreneur than you do in corporate America. Two, you have to be more diligent and financially disciplined to store the money and make the money work hard for you. Because it took so long for me to get that point, there were trials, there were tribulations. I was spending money in the wrong places and rather investing it in real estate so I would plan for the long term. I was worried about rent, personnel, people, and I really wasn't I didn't even have a P&L, Scott, when I first started. I didn't even know what that was. I just knew there was money in my bank account. Yay, I paid bills. I have a surplus. Good. And so I just started realizing, what was my exit going to look like? How was I really going to get out of entrepreneurship? And it started with stocks. Even just putting $100 in stocks is what I did. I did a Vanguard account and I did that, and I built it up to where I said, okay, now I need to buy my home as far as my forever home. I had my temporary home, right? Because I needed the write-offs from the 100K salary. But then I also needed, now that as an entrepreneur, I was making more money, needed more opportunities to decrease my taxes, but also still have that asset make money, just like my business was. That's when then I said, okay, I have to diversify, not just in stocks, but in real estate as well. So that's when I got to playing Monopoly in real life and said, how do I build a real estate portfolio? And I live in California. Scott, California, real estate, investors, stay away from it.
$700,000 for a 3-2 ranch home. Welcome. Yeah. I always say that Florida is California in 1985, right? Because right now, real estate's around $400,000 to get into a starter home, right? And there will one day it's going to be California style. Starter homes are 600. I mean, you tell me, you know better than I do.
Yeah. No, starter homes right now are in Los Angeles about 650, 700,000, and forget it if you want to rent it out. Right. You're not going to make the rental cap. So when I started looking at my portfolio, I had to start looking outside of California. So actually I bought my first real estate portfolio, a property in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. I bought oceanside, $87,000 condo, used it as an Airbnb, and made money. I bought it up for 150,000 cash because remember, business was going really well. I needed to leverage that money that was sitting in my bank account, not earning me anything. I was already doing really well in my business. And I said, I had to park this money somewhere else. Uncle Sam's going to take this money from me. And so what I ended up doing is I bought it as an Airbnb. It was something also my family and I could enjoy, and got the tax benefits through a cost segregation study to where now, instead of me making that 150,000 and having to pay taxes on that, I just got an $87,000 discount on my income from a property that is going to make me money in the long run. And it was making me, on average, just to give people perspective, about anywhere between $12,000 to $15,000 a year off of $87,000. You're not going to get that sitting in a bank account plus the tax depreciation from it. And you get to use it. It's an actual usable asset. I don't know about the last time you used AMC stock, but I was able to do that with the...
No, okay. So $87,000. You probably had to put another 10 or 20 grand into in related, BS, and then probably another 20% yearly fees. You're probably keeping 14 of that though, right? And that's probably about 13% on $87,000, which is better than anywhere. You're not going to beat that. Now, what year was that? Because I always watch, my wife and I are hilarious. So we were watching the HGTV, like, well, we're going to do these renovations for $14,000 to make a new kitchen, blow out these walls. No one is doing that for 14 grand. What year was this, and what opportunities are still out there? Is there areas like that still?
So I ended up purchasing this in the pandemic, 2020. And so, of course, everybody that bought in real estate at the time, killer deals, but we wouldn't have known it then. So the challenge with real estate is everybody waits for the perfect time, Scott. And everybody asks me the question, Victoria, when's the right time to buy? My answer is always the same. The right time to buy is when you can afford to buy, because you buy real estate and then wait. So fast forward, we also ended up selling that property. So I don't own that property anymore. I ended up selling that property in 2022, and I sold it for $155,000. Took that money and reinvested it into a California Airbnb short-term rental in Big Bear, California, because I wanted something that we could use closer to the family. And it was also going to be one of the kids' 529 plans. So instead of me having a 529 plan that can only be allocated for either college funds or education, I know they've gotten rid of that rule recently, but at that time in 22, that's when I said, okay, I need to find an asset that if my kids decide they want to be entrepreneurs and not go the corporate America route, that I could set them up with seed money. I could leverage the equity in that, and they get to have amazing memories that they create locally with a real estate asset that is going to pay us off in the long run. So sometimes you also have to take a step back and look at the real estate portfolio that you do have. And it's no different than when you invest in stocks. Which are the winners, which are the heroes, and which are the losers? And you always have to reassess that. Right now, there are some properties in Ohio, Nashville, where you could get in at 87,000, 50,000. North Carolina is blowing up right now. So for any people that are looking to expand their portfolio and want to come in with minimum contribution, no brainer. I mean, you've got three different real estate strategies: short-term rental strategies, which is your Airbnbs, anything less than 30 days. You've got your midterm, which is 30 days to a year. So think of your corporate housing, working with insurance companies, working with...
Or snowbirds coming down from Canada, wanting to get away from the cold or whatever. They want to do 3 months at a time. Right.
Exactly. Think about, you're talking about your traveling nurses, traveling doctors. They're really great candidates for that. So that would be one other strategy. And then the last strategy is the long term. Typically, multiple doors hedges your risk. So you don't have to worry about one tenant not paying. You've got 3 more tenants if you're buying a 4-unit. And so again, there's all these other opportunities out there that I think when people just sit in their bubble and think home ownership is unaffordable, sometimes it's going outside of the box to find the other home ownership opportunities that are available. The average price point across the nation for homes is still $350,000 across the nation. So where I'm in a market where it's $750,000 to buy, but I could buy something else for $60,000 somewhere else across the nation with 20% down, and it gives me a good return to shelter that money. Why would I not take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's because it's interesting. So, okay, so specifically your organization, like how do you help entrepreneurs do this? So kind of bridge that gap for us.
Absolutely. So what we do is we work specifically with entrepreneurs. Let's be honest, Scott. Most entrepreneurs write off all their taxes because they don't want Uncle Sam to, have to pay. They're going to have to pay taxes on the income. So what do? We all take advantage of the deductions. Well, that also makes it very difficult for financing because you usually have to use the net income. So after all the deductions, so let's say my company made $1 million this year, but after depreciation, deductions, everything, the company only made $100,000. Well, you qualify off of that $100,000. So what we do is we find wealth strategies to leverage entrepreneurial programs such as bank statements. I bought my home with bank statements. I didn't even use my taxes. We qualify with all of the deposits in the bank accounts, use that as revenue, and use that as income. There's profit and loss programs where you just take the P&L. There's also DSCR, which is your debt service coverage. So if they're buying an investment property and the property breaks even by $1 with the rents and the payments, the property itself qualifies. So there's all these types of other ways.
Let's back up for a moment. Let's say that one more time. So you have $1 above you basically your expenses. What say that one more time?
Yeah. So let's say my rent is $3,000 and the payment is $29.95. Right. The property qualifies, you qualify. I don't need taxes. I don't need pay stubs. I don't need bank statements. I don't need anything beyond the property itself qualifying. So there are really great programs out there. And what we do is we help people look at creative financing options. Entrepreneurs do a wealth strategy plan. In addition to that, we look at the entrepreneur's taxes and P&L and say, where could we squeeze out more money for more savings? Sometimes people are overspending in marketing budgets and not seeing a return on investment. Sometimes people are investing in materials or supplies and they're not getting that much of a return, and therefore they don't feel like they have that much cash flow. So we don't just look at it from the home ownership standpoint. We look at it as true entrepreneur wealth strategists to help them leverage their hard-earned money. Money should always make more money. Money should make babies. If it's not making babies, we have a problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting, it's if the way people should think of you, in my opinion, right, is someone they should go to when they really need something above and beyond. They have like maybe a high cash position, right, and they really need to turn that into a 7 to 15% kind of return that's not in the stock market, which, by the way, isn't really doable anymore. It is, but it's easy to point to, when you know where the gold is buried, just go dig there, right? So not everything you do in the stock market is ever going to, kind of pan out like that. Whereas I think the real estate, I believe that you probably have a higher success rate over the long term.
You do, and it's less risky. So I always like to think of risk tolerance when you're investing your money in anything, because we work hard as entrepreneurs, right? You work hard, you're working 40, 50 hours a week just to make profit sometimes in some cases, especially right now with inflation. A lot of entrepreneurs are trying to figure out, hey, how do I maximize my dollar? But at the same time, every entrepreneur is going to exit their business. The question is, are you going to exit profitable, or are you going to exit because you have to exit because of the debt? And so I think it really comes back down to an entrepreneur establishing their priorities, establishing what's important, what does the exit look like, and how much money do you need to replace your active income for with passive income? And once we find that strategy, if it's 10,000 in passive income, great. Now, how hard do we have to work for the next 2-3 years? And what's the strategy? What's the roadmap that we need to build in order to replace the active for the passive? Because the whole goal is for us to all be on the yacht, Scott.
Right. Well, it's just funny because it feels like, you started basically a mortgage company at one point in time. And then there was a moment you had this realization right? We're like, wait a minute. I wonder if I really started kind of fitting what it is that I do really toward people that are looking for those type of third incomes or kind of a housing portfolio. Can you speak to that? I mean, was that moment one you'd already came to that realization before you started your organization?
No, so it was because when I started my organization, the first part of it was just, can I replace my corporate salary? Right? Remember, I left corporate
Right.
America. Is this proof of
That's the
concept? Like,
dream for everybody who starts, right?
yeah,
Like,
can I
like,
just
oh,
make it
please let me
happen?
just
Right?
replace it. Right,
Yeah, can
right,
I keep the doors open and keep my house over my head, right? And then you hit a realization of, oh my goodness, proof of concept. While this is really working, I'm making money. I'm making more money than I was in corporate America. Holy crap moment. Now what? And now you've got money in your account. So in the beginning, you chase freedom of dollar because you're broke and you're just trying to make the dollar happen. Then you earn money and then you can get into a mental mindset. Business is 80% mental, 20% strategy. And so sometimes you get into the mental mindset. I got comfortable. I would see $150,000 in my bank account and that was profit. And I was like, oh my goodness, I made it. But then I started to see I would come in late. I started to see I was comfortable. I wasn't making as many phone calls. I wasn't generating as much sales. So then I started saying, hold on, wait a minute, something's going on. And I didn't have the financial discipline. I'm first generation in my entire company, I'm entire family lineage to be an entrepreneur and make more than the average six figures. So for me, I made it, Scott. Like I
right.
did it. Then I had to hide the money. So I talked to the richest people I could find and said, how do you still stay hungry when you make money? They're like, Victoria, we hide all the money from ourselves. We are the richest, brokest people. I said, what do you mean? They're like, we start putting our money in other bank accounts, in investments, in stocks, in portfolios where the money is harder for me to access. I know I have the liquidity, but it is harder for me to access. So when I log into my bank account in my operating account and I see $10,000 and I know my monthly overhead is $10,000, you better believe that hunger comes back really quickly. And it was that moment, Scott, that I started to have to hide money that said, okay, now what? I'm hiding the money, I'm growing the money. Now, how do I make the money grow even faster? And that's when I started to diversify the portfolio.
How do you do an Airbnb at a distance? Like, how is that? Do you have a management company, and what does that cost you? Just out of curiosity, asking
Great
for a
question.
friend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have two.
Right.
I have one in Big Bear and I actually have one in Tulum, Mexico. So you talk about distance. I've got one that's a 2 hour commute and I've got one totally international. And when I have a property management company for the international one, so they take care of everything. They take care of the bookings, they take care of the cleaning, they take care of everything. My Airbnb in Big Bear is self-managed. So it's very easy to manage. If for whatever reason I got overwhelmed, I could always hire a virtual assistant. There are plenty of virtual assistants out there that specialize in short-term rentals that you could hire. For me, it's easy to maintain, it's close within distance. And I have a team up there. I have a handyman, I have a cleaning crew, and they come in, turn it over, and no big deal. And it's a close enough drive. So I think I have the best of both worlds. I have one which is self-managed, I have one which is property managed, and they do just fine. For me, my next addition to the real estate portfolio is midterm. So I know short term works really well. I have two seasonal short term rentals. One that does really well for the snowbirds in the summertime, for the Big Bear property. And then during December, November, I get all the East Coasters into Tulum. So I balance the portfolio that way. And I think when people are looking to invest, they need to look at a couple different things. Number one, which is the saturation in the market. So how many of these types of properties are out there? The second thing they need to look at is also the population. Is there a lot of population? Are there touristy attractions? Are there government jobs that are coming in? Are there sports? Like right now, Las Vegas is blowing up because you've got all of this money getting put into the sports divisions. And so there's population growth there. For me, I purchased in Tulum because I knew there was going to be an airport being built directly. I knew there was a Mayan train that was so population, transportation. So these are all things that are out of the box that most investors don't look at to understand that there is an equity growth. And so that's one aspect. The other aspect is, have you ever heard of clean flips, Scott?
I have not.
Okay, so clean flips are actually the best kind. A lot of people also they don't want to deal with it. They want the quick cash. So they get into investing in flips, which is where you take an ugly house, you see it on DIY, you take an ugly house, you invest some money, and then you flip it and you make a good profit. Clean flips are brand new constructions that are in their first few phases that then the builder and the developer after phase 6 or 7 or 8, they are the ones that are increasing the price for you. So in most of these new development homes, you have investors coming in phase 1, phase 2, they buy it low. They wait until if the house stays vacant or they rent it out and they take a little bit of a loss. They rent it out or they don't occupy it. And then once the developer hits phase 8 or 9, they've got instant equity and they sell the property. And that profit margin is what they take as a flip. They didn't do anything. Brand new construction home. So I think also leveraging some of those out of the box strategies to say home ownership is available and you can build wealth with it, I think is some of the value that we bring to the table to help our people.
I spoke to a lady a couple of months ago from California, and I think it was like the 90s. She had saved something like 30 or 40 grand. I want to say she was in Reno. She lives in California now. And at the time she saw a tract housing neighborhood being built, and she took all 30 grand and put like $1,000 down on 30 of them, not knowing how she was going to get the financing or what could happen. And I think she was a blackjack dealer. I don't even think but she literally just, everything went on black, everything on red, right? She made a fortune. Yep. She made an absolute fortune because she somehow managed to make it happen, and then did it again. But it's just funny. It was full circle back to that story. But if I'm from Florida, should I kind of call you in California? Is this really a local thing, or how does that work exactly? Are your clients more local, or are they all over the place?
We have clients all over the place, everything from New York to Florida to California and everything in between. So we support clients and also those investment strategies across the country.
That's okay.
Well, no, we're equal opportunity.
Excellent. But it really does sound like you're kind of looking at the entire U.S. Well, just everywhere. You're looking for the opportunities or the geographics. I mean, obviously, you go to Spain, there's going to be some tax issues. You go to Portugal, there's going to be some things to worry about. But it sounds like you're kind of keeping it in this, on this continent, and that's where the opportunity is. So, what are your if you could see into the future? I've seen they keep threatening in Orlando to start making Airbnbs not illegal, but harder to do because it's kind of taking the local, it's kind of making the property values go through the roof, but it's also making the rentals go through the roof. Are you kind of seeing that as well, or no?
Actually, I'm seeing the opposite in a lot of the short-term rental markets. And the reason being is because a lot of these investors came in during COVID when everybody was traveling locally, everybody was going to Airbnbs because of the pandemic. And so then they were used to that income. They were used to that money coming in. Well, now that we are, 4 years out of the pandemic, we're starting to see Airbnb cash flow not being the same anymore. And so we're seeing a lot of investors actually pull out of the market. So if you're getting into the market of Airbnb, it may be a good time because now you have less competition. So it's been an interesting evolution in the short-term rental market because we're starting to see a little bit more of homes in that strategies category sell versus people buying it up for it because the rates are higher now.
Yeah. The rates are obviously affecting the non-cash positions kind of people because what is it for every 1%? Right, it starts going off the rails. Really cheap money. The time of cheap money is probably gone in our lifetime.
For now, yeah. I mean, unless we see another, unfortunately catastrophic event, right? War, pandemic, that's when we tend to see those unicorn rates. And again, who would have known, right? No one would have known, and hindsight is 2020. However, what you can't control is the payment. What you can control is price. And so I think that it's super important to understand. I'm looking to buy right now. And so I would rather buy at a lower cost of the home with a higher rate because I can always refinance that once rates come down, increase my cash position, and have the equity as well that I can leverage later down the line to expand my business, to do anything else, buy another real estate opportunity, anything whatsoever, buy a commercial building for my business, right? I think we tend to forget that our business is also a really big asset that needs a home too. And so commercial market is also a great opportunity right now because you're seeing a lot of commercial ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, readjust. And the landlords aren't seeing the same cash positions because of the fact that a lot of people are working from home now. So what used to be a 20% vacancy factor is now a 40% vacancy factor because a lot of people are working from home. They're using flex spaces. The workforce after the pandemic changed and evolved in a good way, where it's got a little more flexibility and fluidity, but that also affects the office market. So if I'm an entrepreneur that's looking for an office building because I'm tired of paying rent, I may want to capitalize on this market right now.
Victoria, it was awesome meeting you. This was very enlightening, and I will probably be calling you next week.
Awesome. All right, Scott. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.